Fear does not come from God. It's as clear as day, for God has not given us a spirit of fear. And when you're struggling with fear, you need to know that, because there is an enemy who will lie to you and tell you that God is different than what he really is. God is not the source of fear, and that actually gives us the authority to reject it outright. The spirit of fear, 2 Timothy 1:7, it says this, "For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of self-control." It's a very simple verse, but it's also a very powerful verse. It tells us a lot about who God is and who he is not. It tells us a lot about what God gives us and what he doesn't give us. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but he has given us power and love and self-control. It's a very, very simple verse. It tells us about God, but it also tells us about the source of fear. So if you want to break out of the vicious cycle of fear that so many of us get caught up into, this verse actually reveals the source of fear. And if you can identify the source of fear, you can actually cut it off at the source. The first thing you need to know is this: fear does not come from God. It's as clear as day, for God has not given us a spirit of fear. And when you're struggling with fear, you need to know that, because there is an enemy who will lie to you and tell you that God is different than what he really is. God is not the source of fear, and that actually gives us the authority to reject it outright, because if it doesn't come from God, then we don't have to receive it. And fear does not come from God. Once we know this, we have to answer the question, where does fear come from? And so there are different sources of fear in our life, but let me just say three big ones. The first one is the demonic realm. Fear comes from the demonic realm. It comes externally. How many of you have been in a situation where something came on you, fear came on you externally, and it's almost like there wasn't really an explanation for that fear coming on you. You weren't in the presence of somebody fearful, but the fear came on you. Well, the Bible makes it clear that the demonic realm operates on fear rather than on love. And so when we identify an influence coming from the outside of us, we can realize, actually, I think that's a demonic influence of fear, and I can once again reject that outright, because we want to receive from the right spirit source, not the wrong spirit source. And God is spirit. And so we receive what comes from God, and we reject what comes from the demonic realm. A second source of fear is past experiences. Things happen to us, and then we think, wow, I don't know if I can go through that situation again, because last time that happened to me, it hurt me so deeply. And so the voice of fear can often speak through our past experiences. And then there is another source of fear, and that is the absence of love. And that's because fear thrives in the absence of love. Where there is love, there is security and there's confidence. Where there isn't love, fear begins to take a hold. And so that's why it says this in 1 John chapter 4, verse 18. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves torment. But he who fears has not been made perfect in love. We love him because he first loved us. God is the source of love. He's the source of power. He's the source of self-control. So what happens is we end up getting caught in these vicious fear cycles. The fear cycle goes like this. Fear, first of all, renders us powerless. How many of you have had fear come on you suddenly, and next thing you were paralyzed, you froze, you didn't know what to do, you tried to get the words out, but you choked up. Fear has an intimidating, paralyzing influence on us. So first of all, fear renders us powerless, and when we are powerless, we become vulnerable to fear. A person that's powerless and can't move and can't defend themselves and can't act has just become even more vulnerable. And so the vicious cycle goes round and round in a circle. And that's why it says that God has given us power, because fear causes us to lose power. Fear causes us to lose control. Fear causes us to shy away from love, the vulnerability of love, whereas what God gives us empowers us to act and respond. It empowers us to love, and it gives us the power of self-control. And so there are three simple but powerful decrees we can make to help us break the vicious cycle of fear over our lives. And these are the 3 decrees. Number 1, I reject the spirit of fear. Number 2, my past experiences do not dictate who I am today. And number 3, I am loved. And so we want to make those 3 declarations together. I just want to say that sometimes past experiences are still affecting us in the present, but we can still make the declaration that past experiences do not dictate who I am today. What we're saying is I'm connecting with a superior source of power and love and self-control, and that is shifting and diminishing the voice and the influence that fear has had over me for so long. So I'm going to say it, and I invite you to say it after me. I reject the spirit of fear. My past experiences do not dictate who I am today. I am loved. Amen.